Hello everyone and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol Battle Report, and we once again return to Asgard for the next couple of reports that are planned for the channel. And today we have 16 threat of the all new Cabal versus a more Netflix focused Defenders list, as close as you can get with the miniatures available. But we can go into that more as we take a closer look at the teams. So here is the new Cabal with their fresh new leader, the daughter of the Red Skull, Cynthia, otherwise known as Sin. And she has her Red Menace affiliation bonus, half of which will not actually be apt here because there's no pick-upable objectives. But the other half of her her affiliation bonus, which affects contesting objectives, that is going to be on full show today, so it'll be quite interesting to see how that works out. She's being joined by Insane Assassin Viper, Crossbones, who is her significant other, more or less. Then we also have Mr. Sinister, just to fill in some points, and then also Baron Zemo. And their tactics cards are to Ashen Cinder, Dark Rain, Brace for Impact, Kick 'em while they're down, and what seems like a really good card, honestly, Illicit Tech. So until they make a Jessica Jones miniature, this is as close to the Netflix Defenders as you can get. Of course you have to bring Stephen Strange to lead them to actually have the affiliation bonus, so they can spend extra power to change the type of damage they're doing, which is good because a lot of them are focused on physical power. We have Daredevil at the back there, and then the new miniatures on the field we have Luke Cage, i.e. Power Man, or aka Power Man, and then of course Iron Fist. Iron Fist generates 2 power in the power phase, and Doctor Strange has the Soul Stone with him to bring it up to 16 points, so he'll be getting +1 power from that as well. And the way this works, any enemy within 4 of him that uses a active superpower makes him gain 1 power. So he's hopefully going to be just drowning in power to spend on buffing people, or healing them, as the case may be. That's the plan. Their tactics cards: Heroes for Hire, Medpack, Acute Senses, Field Dressing, and Reversal. And here are the 2 missions. The Extraction is the threat value being played, which is Research Station Attacked. There's a Researcher in the middle of the map. There is 2 evac points. You score 2 if you are securing the Researcher during the cleanup phase, and then you score an additional 2 if they are within 1 of the evac point that started furthest away from you. So the team that starts on this edge, they have to get it to the evac station on the enemy's edge of the table. You don't pick him up, and during the power phase, whoever's securing him gets to move him too. So I don't think he can get into an evac station in 1 turn, so that second half is not going to score until at least turn 2. And also, one of the newer missions, this was in the Cabal and Domino box, I think it was. Secure Sword establishes a base on the Moon's Blue area. There's 3 targets of opportunity consoles. You score 3 victory points if you control the most. And also whoever does control the most can pick an enemy character to chuck them, or say push them small in the power phase. So, it's a crosshair setup. That's the evac station that whoever deploys on that side will need to get the Researcher to. There's the Researcher, there's also one of the consoles under him. The other 2 consoles are on the sides here. And then finally there's the other evac station, and whoever starts on this side will need to move him to there. So we are set up and good to go. The Defenders won the roll off to go first, and they are deployed on your right. The new Cabal are on your left. However, there's only 4 miniatures in the Defenders crew, so they could use a pass to start with, but I guess we'll see. Daredevil deployed down here by the house. We have Luke Cage there. Doctor Strange is right in the middle, and then we have the Iron Fist over there. And remember, this is not their research station, or evac station, sorry. They need to take him to the far side, which this mission basically guarantees a big brawl in the middle, which I quite like. Then over here, Viper by herself, Crossbones and Sin next to each other, Mr. Sinister there, and hidden on the far side of this house, just in there, is Baron Zemo, who's long movement, so he's probably going to be going for that console over there. So with that, let's get started. So it was Baron Zemo that got the game started, and he long moved and then added a little bit on for his other action, just to get barely within 1 to claim that console. Now, I think this might be a first for these type of objectives, where you're staking a claim on a target of opportunity. If there is no one contesting it for the enemy team, you pay your power and you just get it. You don't need to roll for it. And I don't remember if that's been done before. It may have, but that's the way it works for this one. If it is contested or controlled by someone else, you have to roll and get... You just roll 1 die, I think, for these sword consoles, and you have to get a hit, crit, or a wild. So they're not as hard to get. Like, you don't need to roll a crit, like the Kree Power Core, for instance. But yeah, I found that a little different. the man with no fear, Daredevil, was first up for the defenders, and it was pretty much a snap activation for him. He also moves long, so he put himself just within one, and he spent his power to instantly claim that console there, which is also not contested. Viper was next up for the Cabal. She also moves long, and she did so. It didn't put her within 2 to be able to do her basic strike against Daredevil, but she did try and fire her Viper pistol at him, which is a 4 physical. He managed to fully block it, however it still does generate her 1 power regardless of whether or not it does damage. Danny Rand, the Iron Fist, was next up for the defenders. He medium moves, and he did so to get round that house a little bit, and he has a gap closer, which is a range 3 flying kick, but that was not enough to get in at Baron Zemo. So he had no other choice but to just medium move again. He did so. He paid his 1 power, he rolled a die, and if it's a hit crit or a wild you convert, because this is much easier to convert than other objectives of this type. And he converted that console to the defender, so they have majority currently. Crossbones activated, and of course he is very slow, so he just slow moved twice, and that's as close to the centre as he could get from where he started. But it's worth mentioning that if Sin activated first, she does have a free move she can do, where as long as, or a power she can use rather, where if Crossbones is within 4 of her, I think it is, 3 or 4, he gets to activate right after her, much like Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight can do as well. But if he activates first, he has no such rule, so it doesn't work the other way. Luke Cage was next activated. He's a medium move and did so twice to get into the centre. You can't claim or pick up the scientist, it's just whoever's securing him when the turn ends. He is close enough that he's counting towards securing. He paid his 1 power though on the console that's underneath the scientist and converted it, so the defenders currently hold all 3 of the sword consoles. Second last activation for the Cabal was Mr. Sinister. He moved up medium, then he did his basic 5 dice, is it 5? It was 5. Range 3 energy attack on Luke Cage. Luke Cage actually whiffed his defense roll spectacularly. He would have taken 3 damage, but he has invulnerable skin, so he reduces that damage by 1, so he took 2 damage. Then, using the power he generated from that, Mr. Sinister spent 2 on such fun little playthings, where he can move a character within 3. Actually, is it, how much does he move them by? Within 3 he moves them small. Actually, I think Luke Cage has been moved a bit too much, because I'm pretty sure that was a medium move. I thought it was their speed, so I'll adjust that in a second. Either way, he's being moved further this way so that Sin can attack him. So Doctor Strange was of course the last one up for the defenders, and he just double medium moved to take the place of Luke Cage, securing the researcher. That is where Luke Cage ended up. It did move him medium, his full movement, rather than small by accident. He was roughly standing where Doctor Strange is, so he's up on that rock now, not securing the researcher, but Doctor Strange is. So he couldn't do anything else because he double medium moved, and now it is over to Sin to end off battle round 1. So Sin did activate. She moved up medium and then used her automatic pistol on Luke Cage, which has rapid fire, so she gets to fire again, and it just generates 1 flat power each time, regardless of damage done. 1 was fully blocked, and 1 got through for 1 damage. He just reduces damage by 1 to a minimum of 1. I actually expected him to be the first character to have a reduced damage taken by 2 to a minimum of 1. I feel like it would have fit with his invulnerable skin thing. I guess they thought it was too powerful, but either way, that is us into the scoring for Battle Round 1. So at the end of Battle Round 1, we do have some stuff to cover because of Sin's affiliation bonus. So the only thing that matters for this one is if any of her, if her or her allies are contesting an objective, not securing, contesting an objective, you roll 1 die. If it's a hit, crit or a wild, you push enemies that are also contesting it away small. So it did matter for up here, but 2 skulls were rolled, and I don't think she was just within 2, so I don't think it mattered down here, but either way, 2 skulls, so it didn't do anything there. In the power phase, which we're just going to cover now, because Doctor Strange was securing the researcher, he has been moved within 2 of his positions, so he's there. If the defenders secure him again, they'll be able to get him over there to get more points. Speaking of points, because they had the majority, and by which I mean all, of the sword consoles under their control, that's 3 victory points, and for securing the researcher, they got another 2. So as we go into Battle Round 2, it is 5-0 to the defenders. So Battle Round 2 got started with Doctor Strange having a pretty disastrous turn, honestly. The only good thing he did was heal Luke Cage for 3 with his Oster's Refuge, or whatever it's called. So he's within 2, you spend 2 or 3 and then you heal for 3. So Luke Cage is back to full health, so there is that. He then tried to do 2 bolts of bedevilment on Crossbones. It's a 5 energy die attack, and Crossbones only has 2 energy defense, but you'll notice a distinct lack of any damage markers on the table, and that's because both defense rolls were fantastic, and both attack rolls were just okay. Like, it wasn't that the attack rolls were whiffs, it's just that the defense rolls were all crits. So the first activation for the Cabal was Sin. She moved up medium and then spent 4 power on Make It Personal, a 6 physical die attack on Luke Cage. If she got a wild and a crit, she would have been allowed to do a second one on him for free that changes its element type to Mystic. However, she only got a hit and 2 wilds, and he blocked one of them. So he took 2, but it gets reduced down to 1 because of his invulnerable skin. So he only took 1 damage from that, which was not a great turn either. And she's going to activate her special power Partners in Crime because Crossbones is next to her. So Crossbones immediately activates as well, so we'll cover that in a second. But in doing so, she's also given Doctor Strange 1 power because it's the correct type of superpower, and she's well within 4. So Crossbones did activate, however, we're retconning a little bit because a tactics card that was played that's actually supposed to be played at the start of the activation phase, not before an activation. So retconning a little bit, but the 2 people who have activated basically did nothing, so I think it's okay. So to Ash and Cinder is being played. Crossbones paid the power cost that he or Sin can pay 2 to play it. They put down a bomb within 3, and then during the next cleanup phase, all characters within 2 are stunned and take 2 damage. It also destroys any size 3 or less scenery. So, there's just a small nuclear bomb, just a small one, next to the researcher. It's definitely catching Doctor Strange, and potentially anyone else who moves in to secure him. Crossbones did a basic strike on Luke Cage, did not penetrate his defences, so then he moved, and, oh no, sorry, he did 1 damage. Where's that gone? Must have moved it already. He did take 1 damage actually, because he used that power by moving next to here and trying to convert this with Doctor Strange still contesting, which means he just needed a hit crit or a wild on 1 die, as per the way this one works, and he rolled a blank. So it stayed defenders. Unfortunately, the Cabal are not having a good day. So Luke Cage was next up, and he did his Power Man Punch, which is his basic strike on Sin because she was right next to him, and she has 3 energy defense. She took 2 damage from it. She generates power off of that obviously, but she also has the Heir to the Wicked rule, so that if she takes damage and lives, she also generates additional power. So she got 3 power of that essentially. Then he moved medium so that he is next to the researcher, not caring about the miniature nuclear device. Mr. Sinister was next up for Cabal. He moved up so he was within 1 of the central console, and then he did his genetic sampling beam attack so it would hit Doctor Strange and Luke Cage. And again, you might notice the lack of damage. As I said before, this has not been a good day for the Cabal, and it kind of sucks for both sides honestly when one side is just having such bad dice luck. They've had good defense rolls, but attack rolls have been garbage. He still gets a genetic sample from each of them, so he has 2 of those now. But you might notice he has 1 damage. When he hit Doctor Strange with the beam attack, Luke Cage spent 2 and played Reversal, which we've seen a couple of times. So if someone targets an allied character, someone within 3 can spend 2, you roll 4 dice and deal 1 damage for each crit. Single crit. So Mr. Sinister initiated an attack and took 1 damage for his trouble. Sorry, I did forget to cover the one good thing Mr. Sinister did. He spent his last power to try and convert the console here, and he succeeded. So Cabal owned the central one, and the other 2 are still under Defender control. So Daredevil activated next to the Defenders, and it turns out the dice lock is working both ways. He moved so he was within 2 of Viper and initiated his basic 5 die strike. She countered with Coiled Serpent for 2 power, which is basically counterattack. You roll 5 dice instead of whatever you would normally roll. If it results in you taking no damage, you deal 2 damage back. This was Daredevil's attack roll, 4 skulls and 1 hit. This is the Coiled Serpent roll, 2 skulls, 2 blanks and a hit. So hilariously, he still managed with such a pathetic roll to deal 1 damage, so her Coiled Serpent attempt did nothing back. And oh, I just realised he already moved, but you know what, it doesn't matter, so let's cover this. He actually attacked again, but he shouldn't have because I forgot he moved. But this was his other attack roll, so luckily it didn't do anything since I forgot he'd already done an action. But that was his attack roll, 3 skulls, a shield and a blank. It's just the dice. Sometimes the dice aren't with anyone. Oh, and in between takes, did totally forget to mention, the consoles moved Sin back small at the end of the first turn, which is why she was displaced from where you might have seen her. I don't think that was mentioned on camera. So Viper activated in response because Baron Zemo doesn't want to feed Iron Fist power before he activates. And she spent 2 on Displacement Ring, which just places her within 2, so that's why she's next to the objective there. She then did 2 of her basic close combat strikes, and she did pretty well with them. She only got 1 damage through on the first one, but the second one did 3, which is pretty impressive. However, with all the hits and crits she was getting, she didn't get a single wild, so there was no poison, but poison is kind of her thing. She just got really unlucky in that regard. She also spent 1 power to try and convert this, with Daredevil still contesting it, and failed. So the bad luck does continue, although she hit him pretty well. So we're actually not done over here, because in getting struck within 2, Daredevil could use Man Without Fear. So he, for 2 power I think it was, gets to do a free strike against whoever hit him in close combat, because he's not scared of them. And he hit Viper for as good as she hit him. So that's 3 damage on her. She's already got 1, so she's up to 4, and I think she has 5 on her healthy side. So the Iron Fist was up last for the defenders this turn. He stayed where he was and did 2 of his basic attacks, which are Chi Strikes on Baron Zemo, Energy, 5 dice, and the... I can't remember now if it was 1... No, I think the first one did no damage, and then the second one did 2. And as far as Danny goes, saving up for his massive attack, of which he needs 8 power for, he's currently banking 5. So Baron Zemo obviously had absolutely no desire to feed Iron Fist any more power, so he spent 1 of his own to try and convert the console and succeeded, and then he bravely ran away. Double long move. The first one was roughly to there, the next one to the right side of Sin over here, because he likes his chances at helping take out Daredevil better. So at the end of Battle Round 2, quite a few things happened, starting with, in the cleanup phase, the bomb explodes, everyone within 2, which was Doctor Strange and Luke Cage, take 2 damage and are stunned. So that's going to affect their performance in the next turn for sure. The defenders held the Researcher for 2 victory points and then were also allowed to move him, so he's now next to the wrong one. I just realised they'd been moving him towards the wrong one. Oh no! They should have been moving him that way. They've just made it easier for the Cabal to score. Oh no! That is annoying. How many people were screaming that in the comments? Oh well, too late now. I guess technically you could undo the moving them to that way and move them diagonally that way, which we'll probably do. But yeah, that was a dumb thing to do. Oh well. And the consoles, the Cabal hold majority, so they get 3 victory points for that, putting them on the scoreboard. And because they had majority, they could push someone small, so they chose to push Iron Fist further away from the action, small in that direction. So with that, we're going into Battle Round 3, with the defenders still going first. So Doctor Strange got Battle Round 3 started, however, just showing where the Researcher was sent, put back 2, and then moved 2 towards there. That was very silly. Your natural inclination is to bring it towards your deployment, though every game does that. I guess that's what throws you off with this objective. It forces you to fight by sending it towards your enemy. But either way, Doctor Strange stayed still again for his turn. He tried to convert the console for 1 power and failed. He didn't get rid of his stun, so he's generating himself less power in situations where he would normally get more. He did 2 bolts of bedazzlement on Crossbones with his 2 energy defense. The first one did 1 damage, the second one did 3, and he did just decide to take them to the face because he wanted the power. So Doctor Strange did nothing else. Oh no, sorry, he did. He spent 3 to heal Luke Cage for 3. Viper was first up for the Cabal and did her best attack for 3 power, Viper Strike, which is a 6 physical on Daredevil. He did really well with his defense roll and only 1 damage got through, but that was enough with the damage he's accumulated to daze him, so he will not be getting a turn this activation. And given that he was no longer contesting this, she could just spend 1 power to instantly flip it to Hydra, well sorry, Cabal. So now they own all the consoles, and then she dashed along to the melee in the middle of the map. Iron Fist activated and moved medium next to the console, and because no one else was there, could just pay 1 power to instantly convert it to the defenders. He then spent his other activation on a medium move right next to the Researcher, but still not able to join in the fight. Mr. Sinister activated and did his genetic sampling beam again, so it would catch Doctor Strange and Luke Cage. Doctor Strange took 2 damage, Luke Cage took 1, not 2 down to 1, just took 1, and he's now carrying the maximum 3 genetic samples. He then medium moved so that he is contesting the Researcher. Didn't have any power left over to force Iron Fist to move again or anything like that, which was part of the plan, but the Cabal is doing a lot better now, and they're doing a lot of damage, but they don't have a huge amount of power kicking around, whereas the defenders have tons of power but nothing to do with it. So Luke Cage activated, and he is the last one for the defenders this turn, meaning that Crossbones, Sin and Baron Zemo all get to activate. He played Medpack first of all, so you spend 2 to heal 3 on yourself or someone within 3. He healed Doctor Strange for 3, so he's back to 1 damage on him. He moved next to the Researcher, and then he spent 4 power on his best attack, Sweet Christmas, which is, I think, 7 dice physical. Didn't do that great, it got 1 damage through on him, but it did have a wild, and he's size 3 or less, so then he was able to chuck Mr. Sinister into Crossbones, so he took 1 more damage from the throw. Actually just realised Crossbones did not do his dodge roll. Just quickly check it now. He did not fully dodge it because he is size 3, so he took 1 damage from it, which he can use Inure to Pain to ignore, so he will do that because he's getting reasonably up there damage wise. So that is it, that's all we did. Oh sorry, and also Mr. Sinister from Sweet Christmas is stunned and slowed. So first up for the 3 Cabal activations in a row was Crossbones. He moved next to the Researcher even though the Defender still have 2 to his 1. And he also played Illicit Tech, so that for his other action he could fire the Expo Sin Plasma Rifle, which is a range 5, 6 energy. He paid 1 to do that, and the rest of it is just, you deal damage you gain power equal to the damage dealt. And target enemy characters within 2 of it gain Incinerate. Oh, wait, that includes enemy characters? This is just one mistake after the other. The target character and enemy characters... Oh, no, sorry, okay. Target character and enemy characters. So, he is incinerated, as is Iron Fist. Doctor Strange isn't close enough. Okay, I did read it right the first time. So, he has incinerated them, and he moved in, and then it's over to Sin or Baron Zemo. So we can actually just finish those final 2 activations now, because they were all double moves. Baron Zemo did exactly what he did last turn to get back to where he was last turn. He double moved to get over to that console and just paid the 1 power to convert it back over to Cabal. And then Sin did a double medium move to go there to there. So she is also contesting the Researcher. So that's 2 on 2. So no one is going to be claiming that one this turn. So he also will not move. But let's go into the cleanup phase and cover more stuff. So at the end of that battle round, as previously stated, the Researcher is equally held by both sides. He's not near any of the evacs, so he doesn't move and doesn't score for anybody. The only points scored are majority Cabal holding all 3 of the controls again for the shield base. So they get to push someone small, which they did. They pushed Doctor Strange small into the rock here and scored 3 victory points. So as we go into battle round 4 with the Defender going first again and Daredevil flipping his card, the Cabal have caught up. They're, well, almost. They're at 6, and the Defenders have stayed at 7 victory points. So the battle round got started by Doctor Strange having a less than stellar turn. He moved to where you can see him. He spent 4 on the Crimson Bands of Sidtrack, whatever, on Crossbones, and despite him only having 2 Mystic Defense, 1 damage got through, which he avoided with Inure to Pain, so he took nothing. And as a result, with nothing else to do, Doctor Strange spent his last 3 power to heal, once again, Luke Cage for 3 damage rather than go for the console there. Viper was first up for the Cabal, and she came back here to stop Daredevil just instantly claiming this console. She just did her basic strike, and as you can see, well, maybe not because of the reflection, there we go. As you can see, she did ridiculously well with it, and he was embarrassing with his defense roll. He took 5 damage. He's got 6 health on his wounded side, so he is on 1 health and he lived. But also he can't just counterattack normally because on his wounded side he does damage to himself for skull results, so he couldn't take the risk. So yeah, not doing well for Daredevil. Getting very messy in the middle here with all these icons, but Luke Cage stayed still. He did his basic strike but paid 1 for his Defender bonus to turn it to Mystic to try and take out Crossbones. It did no damage. So then he did just a normal one against Crossbones 4 dice, and that did amazingly well. Did 4 damage, only needed to do 2, so Crossbones is dazed and will not be getting a turn this activation. Mr. Sinister activated, and he stayed still for his activation as well because he's trying to remove that very stubborn gentleman known as Luke Cage. He did 2 of his basic range 3 5 energy dice strikes. Sorry, did I say he did 3? He did 2 of them. They're range 3 5 dice. The first one did no damage to him, the second one though did a much more substantial 3 damage to him, which generated him some power. 1 power actually, I forgot he was stunned. And Luke Cage was incinerated, so he was rolling 1 less defense die. If he hadn't been healed by Doctor Strange, that would have been enough to daze him, but thanks to that heal, he's just back to half health again. So Daredevil activated next for the Defenders, and knowing that she would just coiled Serpent, he spent 1 power to try and convert this console before trying to take her out. and did actually manage it. He then just did his basic attack. She did indeed use Coiled Serpent, so that if she managed to block all the damage, she'd do 2 back and kill him. He did 3 though, and she only had 1 left, so she is dazed, and then he moved along to join this melee that's proceeding over in this direction. So Sin activated and targeted Luke Cage with a Make It Personal. However, Heroes for Hire was played by Iron Fist, so he played 2, hoping to kind of like make a net positive power gain. As it turns out, he basically broke even. He gets placed within one of the target and he takes the attack, and then if it doesn't kill him and this character is size 3 or less, he chucks them small. So it only did 1 damage to him, so he essentially got the power, or 1 power back. He then chucked Sin into the building here away from the researcher. She took 1 damage from the impact, of course. She then just fired her automatic pistol, which I would like to remind you is 4 physical, although then she gets to roll 4 physical again. She didn't need to though, because on those 4 dice, she rolled enough that she dealt 4 down to 3 damage, and oh yeah, Luke Cage was only rolling 3 instead of 4 physical dice, but still he whiffed his defense roll and got nothing, so he dazed. He actually got dazed by a 4 physical dice attack on his best defense, which is ridiculous. So Iron Fist couldn't save him, and it is over to him to be the final activation for the defenders this turn. So Iron Fist activated and decided to abandon the researcher to do a flying kick, which is range 3 and it closes the distance for him. Into Baron Zemo, it did 2 damage, leaving him on 1 health. He then did a Chi Strike, and it did 3 damage, obviously much more than was needed. So Baron Zemo got dazed, and then he spent 1 power just to convert that console there. Oh, and the flying kick just generates 1 power, whereas the Chi Strike is normal, damage done, etc. So because Zemo got dazed and because Crossbones got dazed, that is actually the end of a turn, because everyone else has activated. So the end of Battle Round 4, I have to say, have been totally forgetting Sin's affiliation bonus to potentially knock people back from objectives, since it's so similar to what one of the actual objectives does. It was done now though, and Doctor Strange was pushed back small from the central console there. And as for the actual consoles, the defenders hold majority, so they scored 3 victory points for that this turn and opted to move Sin small to where you can see her over there. Nobody claimed the researcher because the 2 people next to it are stunned. So no victory points from that at all. We go into Battle Round 5, the Cabal are going first. The defenders are leading though 10-6, and a lot of people are flipping their cards. So knowing that there is a field dressing card potentially in play, Viper activated to go after the person who was not close enough to get the benefit of it without wasting activations. She went after Daredevil, trying to take out his 1 HP he had left to stop to get him off the table entirely. She moved, she did a Viper strike, but he fully defended it, so he didn't take any damage. First activation for the defenders was the Iron Fist, and he spent 8 power to use his 9 energy, the Iron Fist, which is his just a ridiculously powerful attack. First of all, anyone within 3 of the target takes 1 damage. Sin took 1 damage and is dazed. She only has 4 health on her healthy side. And then he just did a casual 6 damage to Baron Zemo, which just outright killed him on his dazed side. Had it not have killed him, it would have given him an activated token, because he hadn't gone yet. So then for Danny's other activation, he just moved next to the researcher. Takes a while to get to that power, but that was really, really, really strong. Mr. Sinister activated now that Iron Fist is free to be targeted, because he's had his power fed to him. He did an energy blast on him. It hit him for... I actually think that hit him for 1 damage. I don't quite remember now. But either way, he then absorbed 2 genetic samples to do his what is it called? Recumbent disintegration. 6 mystic on everyone within however many genetic samples he spent. So he spent 2, so anything one within range 2 of Iron Fist. It caught Luke Cage, inured to pain, made the 1 damage that Crossbones would have taken and be ignored, and sent his days, so can't take anything. Between those 2 attacks he took 4 damage in total, which plus the 1 on him is enough to daze him, and Luke Cage just took the 1 damage. Doctor Strange activated and spent the 4 power required for the Crimson Bands of Citriarch, or Citriarch, whatever it is, on Crossbones. Did 3 damage, but more importantly got a hit, crit and wild in the roll, which means if he doesn't have an activated token, instead of staggering, which didn't do last time because it did no damage. Actually, if it does stagger anyway, then that was something missed. Either way though, it gave him an activated token, so Crossbones isn't getting a turn either, which means that all the Cabal have gone, and Luke Cage and Daredevil just get to have their turns. Oh, and sorry, obviously, as you can see, Doctor Strange then moved over there. He had no power left to try and convert this, so instead he just tried to put pressure on the researcher. So Luke Cage was up first out of those two, and he spent 4 on field dressing to field dress his friend, Iron Fist. So he's had his day's token removed and has 1 health back. More importantly, because he's still on his healthy side now, he and Doctor Strange are comfortably holding that researcher. So Luke Cage, he moved over here, and then for his other action he tried to do a basic strike and crossbones, didn't get through his physical defense. He paid his last power to convert the console, the sword console here in the middle, and he succeeded, so they now have majority of those as well. So of course Daredevil was last up, and he moved long for his first activation right there. Then he did Devil's Deliverance for 5 power up to 6, because he used the Defender's Affiliation bonus to change it to energy. It's base only 2, but then you add 2 for every non-dazed enemy within 2, so that was up to 6 because of these 2. He smacked Crossbones for 3, and Inured to Bane brought it down rather to 2, but that was still enough that he's actually just gone because he has 5 health on his wounded side. Mr. Sinister would have taken 3, which would have been enough to daze him. However, he used his last genetic token to bring the damage down by 1, so he's got 2, but he is still conscious on his healthy side. I guess Luke Cage probably gets hit by that as well and takes 1 damage. Oh, and he got pushed back as well by the attack. So that does take us to the end of the round. So the end of the penultimate battle round, the defenders scored everything except the additional bonus for having the researcher move. Well, speaking of which, the researcher will move. But they are securing him for 2, and they have the majority consoles for 3, so they gained 5, which took them to 15 versus the Cabal's 6. Which means we can just end the game because there's only 1 battle round left, and even if the Cabal had a perfect score, as in somehow they managed to get that over there, the most they can score is 7, which is not enough to get them higher than the defenders, because that would be, what, 13 in total to their 15. So I know some people get annoyed if you don't play the last round, but when the mathematics are literally there is no way for them to win, there is no reason to play it out further. Again, the defenders can score literally 0 in the final turn in turn 6. The Cabal can score perfectly, even though it's impossible because there's no way they're getting that over there, so it'd still be 2 less, they'd only be gaining 5. The defenders still win on points. Technically, I guess they could table them, but knowing that they've won by points, as long as one of them scarpers, and Iron Fist has long movement as well, there's no way they can lose. So we're calling this a defender's victory. So just time for some quick final thoughts in the outro here. And a warning to remember that the dice in Marvel Crisis Protocol are very, very swingy. That's the thing with D8s, and especially early on in the game, Cabal, perfect defense. Their defense rolls were amazing, their attack rolls, garbage. The defenders did a lot better in general, then around the middle of the match they just started having no luck with the results. The Cabal defense stayed strong, so they had a tough middle where it looked like the Cabal were just going to easily swing it. But then at the end there, they came back when it mattered, and Daredevil not getting taken out by Viper was just a pure luck. Like, the numbers were in her favour twofold, and she couldn't do 1 damage. Luke Cage, he lasted, like, it might seem like he was being super duper tanky, but that's because Doctor Strange was keeping him alive. Although the thing with this list was, again with the Soul Stone feeding off superpowers, although not that many got used, to be honest. Inured to Pain was mostly the one feeding him power. He was a power siphon. He needed to be where the action was, siphoning power from everybody using superpowers around him, and then using that to give people extra... Well, they never really used Horath's Hoary Wisdom, but he definitely... I think he healed 9 damage on Luke Cage in total. Not simultaneously, obviously, but Luke Cage was kept alive by Doctor Strange. He would have been dazed much earlier if not for him, although he was doing okay. Iron Fist, though, the actual Iron Fist attack is amazing. No wonder you don't want to feed him power, and the Cabal were trying not to, but he gets 2 per power phase, and he does do damage, so it's a bit hard to stop him getting it. Like, even if you try and utterly ignore him by turn 3, he's probably got enough, or close to. And yeah, the Iron Fist attack is fantastic. I prefer Luke Cage as a miniature, as a character, and all that, but in terms of on the table, Iron Fist definitely... He did better than him, just purely because it was Doctor Strange babysitting Luke Cage that kept him alive. Daredevil, I am going to beat a dead horse here a little bit. He's a 3-threat character that costs 4. He is not good enough for 4. It's a little bit of a waste. Could have had Wong on the list if we dropped the Soulstone and replaced Daredevil with someone who's 3 threat and better, like Valkyrie for instance, or Hawkeye even. And obviously the defenders did also make a massive error moving that towards the wrong one. They probably would have had that over here, so that just further emphasises they were going to take this. It was closer than it seemed to be. Dice rolling played way too big a factor this time, just the swinginess of the dice made it a little annoying at times. But the teams were fine. Viper had the worst luck, for sure. And Sin, I don't know. She didn't get her extra bonus make it personal attacks with some bad rolls, which is a shame. But don't have much to say about her yet. She needs to get a bit more time on the table, I think. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I sincerely hope you enjoyed. Please do show your support, and we'll see you in the future for more. Ta-ta for now.